All right, let's come back to the diet. The biggest lever we have here. Again, it's probably pretty obvious the foundation we need to work at here. We've been talking about carbs and sugar, so we need to bring those down. But what does that look like practically?
Yeah, so Jesse, my population oftentimes is protein deficient, and I make sure to know that before I start giving them diet advice. Is I want their diet recall. I mean, in my first meeting with them, I ask them what they're eating. My team and I, we ask them what they're eating verbally, and then after that, they start logging their food into our app, so that we're not just imagining what they're eating and giving advice hypothetical. We're giving on the ground feedback to their actual choices that they've had in the last 7 days. And it doesn't have to be perfect food or clean food. We're like, you're eating, you're in the world making these decisions, you're attending that party, you're going for that work conference, you're traveling, you're eating from an airline plate of airplane food. These are your realities, right? So log those, because whether you tell it to me or not, your body is anyway having to process this food. So let's start with your reality. And my app will, I have the app, so the app will count their carbs and their proteins. I specifically don't have them count their fats because I'm okay with natural healthy fats, but I want them to know their carbs and proteins. What I find and I show them is, look, you're not reaching your daily requirement. And I aim for much more than the zero point 0.8. I aim for, as long as someone has healthy kidneys, I'm asking them to first increase their protein to at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilo body weight. And I do that first because a lot of times when people come in and they think they're going to get diet advice, they're afraid that someone's going to take my food away. And I'm chronically hungry. I'm weak. I'm feeling tired. If they take away my food, I'm going to be more hungry, weak, and tired. So they're, almost resisting before I even say anything. So I help reassure that fear. I'm saying, I'm not taking any food away. I'm asking you to eat more protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Try and get 25 grams of protein as soon as you start the day, at lunch, at dinner. See how you feel. And then, based on how hungry you still are, then you can dial down those carbs, because everybody starts complaining. I'm so full. It's so hard to eat so much protein because they've been so used to getting, honestly, when I count for them, they're getting about 25 to 30 grams. Some of them maybe 50 grams or 60 grams of protein a day, but very few are above that on day one when they meet me. And so they're so used to being undernourished on protein and hungry all day from high carb that they're surprised at how full they feel when they suddenly get enough protein. So that makes it easier for me to talk to them about reducing carbs.
Okay, so first step, upping the protein, 25 grams per meal. How long does that first phase last before you start adjusting carbs?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. So I deal with a lot of vegetarian leaning people. The Indian culture, even if people say they eat animal protein, a lot of them are not eating it every day. They might eat it twice a week for religious reasons or cultural reasons, availability, financial reasons, so many reasons. And so when I count their intake, they sometimes are so low and vegetarian predominant, making that switch up to getting enough for the vegetarian people sometimes takes up to 2 months. And they start complaining of maybe some digestive changes. They were used to having, let's say, lots of fiber in their vegetables, and they might be reducing some of the carby fibers. And then they say their gut habits have changed. So we have to settle that down. And then there's a psychological resistance to protein in my population, at least in the Indian community. There's a lot of fear around protein. They're worried about their kidneys and uric acid, not justified with any science, but this fear is quite present in the community. So I have to deal with that. And if you're going to stay vegetarian, I then have to talk to you at some point about maybe you need a protein supplement. And then there's a lot of pushback they get often in the house is, well, why are you taking all these fake powders and things like that? And I'm like, sure, whole food first. If you take animal protein, you probably won't need the protein shakes, but on a vegetarian predominant. So these are the conversations we have to navigate, negotiate, and they need to be able to apply it in their life. And I don't give out a diet plan because honestly, in my own family of four, my husband and two daughters, four of us could have four different choices for how we like to eat our meals. And we don't have the exact same preferences. So I don't assume that I can prescribe one diet plan that's going to work for all clients. We need to reverse engineer this from their kitchen, their daily life. Can they cook? Do they have help? Are they eating out? Are they traveling? And it has to be a dynamic skill that we teach them. So it can take time. My long answer for your question is it takes time because we're helping them build solutions rather than shortcut, short-term diets that last for just a few weeks as long as their motivation lasts. But then when life gets difficult, they have to throw the diet off because it's too challenging.
Okay. So it's a longer process, gentle. Is there an end goal with carbs? A number you like to see people get down to?
Yeah, so if they're going to stay vegetarian, then I'm able to help them achieve their results if they can stay in an 80 to 100 gram carb range. I've seen some low carb communities say less than 130 or 120. I find that when there are vegetarian proteins, being 80 to 100, a little bit lower than what we call the upper limit of low carb, not so low into the keto range, because for vegetarians, it gets very limiting and restrictive. There aren't a lot of natural Indian foods that are keto friendly or keto compliant, especially in the vegetarian world. So I don't, and I want to help them build something they can sustain, right? It's not just a flash in the pan diet for 2 weeks. This has to be something they can live with forever as a long-term plan. So we go gentle with 80 to 100 grams of carb a day. Most of my patients and clients find they're mentally satisfied, they're happy, it fits with their, family life, social life. They're able to balance eating out sometimes, having a dessert sometimes, a fruit sometimes, a bread or a rice or a grain once in a while, and still get those metabolic results. I might need to add intermittent fasting, but we sort of cross that bridge when it comes.
Okay. For somebody that is open to animal protein, you mentioned ketosis. How do you feel about including animal proteins for that person and then getting the carbs down to a point where they're in a ketogenic state?
Yeah, we do that. So as long as the person is fine with animal protein, again, this is all patient or client driven. We check their preferences first. If they're fine with animal protein, it's by far a much superior protein, and we agree hands down. Definitely my patients who are open to it, the ones who go animal only, they achieve their results much faster and the struggle is minimal. The ones who are vegetarian are the ones who struggle more. But that's not to say that anybody deserves to, keep struggling. It just might take a little longer. But yes, the people who go animal route, they achieve their results much faster. And I may not have them be testing the ketone strips, but when we count their carbs, they're below 50. Because if you're eating only animal protein, you're automatically easily into ketosis just by doing that. And they feel great. Their energy turns around in about 2 weeks max. I haven't seen anybody need longer than that. Honestly, it starts to happen as early as 3 to 5 days. You'll see a very drastic change. And then they feel so good on that plan, they don't like getting out of it because their body gives them very quick feedback. So, yes, those who are open, we definitely want to support them on that journey.
Okay, you said animal only. Are you talking about carnivore?
I have two Indian patients that are carnivores. I've met a colleague now, an emergency room physician from India, from New Delhi, who's a carnivore. So the carnivore community in India is growing. There are a few fitness influencers who are carnivore only. But again, I let them tell me that that's how they want to be. But even if it's animal only, I guess that's a very small percentage, but animal predominant. So the ones who are animal predominant and like really, really low carb, they may not be full carnivore, but they're ketogenic enough with this less than 50 grams of carb from, maybe a fruit or a salad or something here and there. And again, ketosis is not the goal in itself. I'm looking for, did they achieve their metabolic goals? Did they get their glucose normal? Did they get off their meds? Did the BP come down? Blood pressure? Are they losing inches from the waist? Are they getting stronger? As long as all of that's happening, I don't need to fuss over their ketone levels.
Okay, we've talked quite a bit now about what to eat, but let's get into the when to eat. And you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
fasting. There's a couple different areas there I want to get into snacking and fasting. So let's start with snacking. For somebody that comes to see you, whatever diet they're going to embrace, is that something you try and get them to eliminate pretty early on?
Yeah, so I like to think of myself as like a Google Maps or a guide or navigation assistant or an educator. I don't like policing people saying you will now stop snacking because I say so. What I do instead is I've given my patients access to a video course. It's a nutrition and lifestyle video course that I made, and it's got chapters, it's got quizzes, and it explains to them visually what it means inside the body when they snack. Is like we were talking a few minutes ago, is every time you eat, the body releases insulin to store fuel. And if you're eating from morning to night, energy abundance, you're telling your body if you're eating 6 to 8 times a day, small, frequent meals, that's 6 to 8 messages to the entire body: store fuel, store fuel, store fuel. You're getting very little time without that insulin message going in the system. And so I leave it to them as a choice. Now, most people watch that video and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I didn't know I was doing that. I thought I'm supposed to be eating all day. That's what people said. And there are a couple of reasons why people eat small, frequent meals. One is that it's been prescribed by their nutrition expert, or it's been prescribed by their doctor. Why? Because they might have been given a certain diabetes prescription that makes the blood sugar crash too low if a meal is missed. And so the doctor is trying to prevent side effects of low glucose by making them eat, which is really backwards. It's completely messed up to do it like that because diabetes is a problem of high glucose. It's only a problem of low glucose because of the medication. And overeating or overexposure to food was one of the drivers of this problem. And now we're adding more food on top of that. So how's that person ever going to escape out of this, vicious cycle? So I give this information to the patient, and then the minute their eyes open, most people see this common sense to this, and they're like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to club my snacks with my meal. If I wanted to have this mid-meal fruit or something, I'm going to put that with the meal, either the previous or the next one, and keep it there. And then they realize, oh, but I'm so full because I'm prioritizing protein. I'm going to knock off some carb from that bigger meal so that I don't feel so stuffed. And so by themselves, with their own awareness of hunger and fullness, they end up reducing snacks. They end up reducing the, overeating portion size at the meal and holding on to that protein. So it's not a calorie fight between me and them.
As you talk about that situation with the doctor where they may be telling them to have snacks because of the drugs they're on, I can see as you talk about that the importance of working with somebody like you as they go through this. Because if you're on medication and you're metabolically broken and you've been this way for a long time and you start to bring the carbs down, but your medication is targeted at the old lifestyle, you can run into problems that way as well.
You could be in danger. You could face a very low glucose reaction. So you need to work with someone who knows that you're doing this. Your blood pressure can crash. So I see that too. Your sodium can come low. You can start getting cramps from electrolyte losses. Keto flu, that's another one. So just feeling nauseous and weak and low energy. So you may actually need to keep an eye on the blood pressure and replace electrolytes, especially salt and magnesium. So there's a lot that can happen. I mean, if it's a metabolic disease that affects the entire body, and you're flipping it within days by making powerful nutrition changes, no doubt a doctor or some qualified professional needs to be helping you through it if you've been on lots of prescription drugs. Yeah.
All right, let's move into fasting. We'll start with intermittent. I know for you, reading your book, that this is a later thing, at least depending on the person. When does that come in? And then what do the early stages of that look like?
Again, people here now, because they know what I do, they're like, oh my God, she's going to make me fast. And that's not how it works. We hold on to that as a reserve treatment. It's not something we prescribe to everyone. It needs to be done like a prescription in my mind. It is, you're very strongly changing insulin signals when you fast. So if you're not careful, you could, interfere with their physiology, and it's not ideal then if you're doing it with, let's say, improper protein intake, or if you try fasting from a high carb intake. This is where people come in and say, oh, I tried fasting. I know you're going to tell me to fast, but it doesn't work for me. I had a terrible experience. Most times when I go into that history, I can find problems in those four lifestyle areas, what I call the four wheels of the lifestyle car. I find issues. I'm like a mechanic in that sense. I'll do the diagnostic on each lifestyle area. And in my checklist, I'll find, oh, this is why your fasting didn't go well for you. This is why, this is why. And so we don't use it as a magic wand. It's something to use in case you did everything you could with nutrition, sleep, stress management, exercise, and you didn't quite get all the results you were looking for, especially in my population, which might be vegetarian, might have that slightly higher carb intake than a ketogenic range. They're in this 80 to 100. So there is that daily carb that's coming in. That person might have a little bit of belly fat that's not gone, a little bit of fatty liver, triglycerides are not coming down, diabetes is not fully getting reversed. We may need to add this fifth element of intermittent fasting in that situation. And when they reach there, because we've done it in the right sequence, they're already feeling full, they're not hungry, and they're waiting for fasting. They're asking me, can I please fast? And then it becomes a safer and more pleasant experience.
By the sounds of it, with the patients you're working with, you're not recommending longer fasts, say 2, 3 day fasts, water fasting. But for somebody over time, if they become metabolically healthy, how do you feel about that as a periodic tool?
Again, what duration is right for each person? We start with 16 hours and keep watching those glucose levels, especially for someone who has diabetes. It's an easy measure of how much fasting do we need. Someone who's doing it for purely for weight loss, we just have to sort of play it out and try and get them into the 36-hour fast so that they actually get into fat burn, and give that a couple months to see how well it goes, maybe twice a week or 36-hour. Once they've achieved their goals, and this is me, right? I don't have a disease that I'm trying to reverse. I played around with all the combinations. My maximum fast was 116 hours, like just short of 5 days. And I did it as an academic exercise. I wanted to know what I was prescribing. I've done a couple of the 48s, I've done the 72, and then I pushed to see what's my threshold. And that way I know what I'm prescribing. And for the periodic fasting that some people do, like once a year, a water only 72-hour autophagy inducing, like an anti-cancer fast, I have no problem with that. Once you've achieved your goals, you don't need to be fasting all the time. I'm more interested in helping you maintain muscle. It's very difficult to build muscle as we age when we're in a nutrient deficit. We want to be giving that anabolic stimulus. We want to give that muscle growth stimulus. So we want to nourish the body well, train well. And so I would like to see the person eating sufficient protein rather than over fasting when they don't need it. And then they can do these once a year longer water fasts just for the, for the cleanse benefits. But, still more data needed to know what anti-cancer properties it has. But the concept of autophagy is very fascinating. So I think it's fine to do a long fast once in a while.
Are there any specific supplements you recommend to somebody who is insulin resistant that can help them get back quicker?
No, I haven't seen enough strong data there beyond just replacing what's deficient in terms of iron, B12, and D. A lot of people do try and use supplements, but I haven't seen a direct correlation that here, this supplement reduces insulin resistance. Creatine for helping muscle and to, there's so many other benefits we're looking at now in terms of giving creatine. So that's the one supplement additional that I might add. But other than that, I haven't found great studies to say that this micronutrient is what we were missing in terms of fixing insulin resistance.
Okay, what about for general health? You mentioned electrolytes before. We could tuck that into this category.
Yeah,
But
so
are there any
magnesium.
baseline? Yeah, you mentioned magnesium before too.
Yeah,
Other baseline supplements.
not beyond the B12, the iron, and the D in terms of daily needs. I would give you, if you're not getting enough omega-3 in your diet, then we need to look at that as probably taking some omega-3. Especially the vegetarians, they probably should think about that. But again, the data is not strong. So we might do it because it makes us feel better, but we don't have perfect studies on this. These are nutraceuticals, they're not studied well. So if it's almost like, hey, if you're asking me and you want to take it, I'm not going to say no because I don't have proof that it's harmful. But is there strong evidence that an omega-3 supplement is beneficial or reduces cardiac risk? Not strong evidence. Again, magnesium, symptom-wise, if someone's feeling that, low energy or muscle weakness, cramps, insomnia, things like that, then we use the magnesium as well.
All right, before we leave the diet piece and move to the other factors, your four factors. Well, we've covered intermittent fasting, but the other three, I want to talk about your diet specifically, which is different than a lot of the guests that are on the show. A lot of the people that come on here are keto with heavy meat, carnivore, low carb with heavy meat. I'm somewhere in that realm as well right now. But you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I think it's important we talk about how you structure your diet, what that looks like, because you're still prioritizing metabolic health and low carb,
Yes.
but you're sticking to a different paradigm than many in our world. So talk about that.
Yeah, and I would love to give hope to the vegetarians who feel a bit ostracized or demonized or feel like, where's my guiding light? What should I be eating? So I am just under 60 kilograms. And so for me, 1.2 is about a 75-gram goal. I would love to get higher than that if I can. And I'm about to intensify my workout routine and go a bit heavier in the gym. So I'm expecting I'm going to be hungrier because of that. And so I will up my protein as much as I can tolerate above that as well. But for me, it's like a whole box of tofu would be one meal, which gives me about 25 to 28 grams. That's one meal. I do 5 eggs with cheese as another meal. So that's like more than 30 grams when I add the cheese. If I'm hungry in between, I'll just eat like half a deck of cards worth of cheese, like maybe 6 ounces of cheese. I'll just munch on it. And then I also do like paneer, so the dairy Indian fresh cheese that comes from splitting milk. So I might do, instead of the tofu, I might do like a huge bowl full, like about 150 grams of paneer, which is another close to 25 grams of protein there. And I swap around with those. And if I'm all over the place traveling on the road and I don't know where I'm going to get this protein from, then I do a protein shake, and 25 grams in that. Mostly I do a plant-based one, like it's a combo of brown rice, quinoa, and pea protein, unflavored, unsweetened. It tastes like chalk. It's not yet nice to drink. I could add some flavors to it, like some cilantro and some chili and some lime and mint leaves, fresh mint leaves, and some like spices, but it's too much work. So I just shake it and I gulp it. Or I'll do a whey protein shake every now and then. But there was a phase when I was dairy free. So then I was off of the cheeses and the whey.
And eggs are a big part of your diet, correct?
Yeah, I can't do without the eggs. If things are tough, if I'm out and it's crazy, I might even do 8 eggs or 10 eggs a day.
Okay, and obviously, again, coming back to the typical guests on the show, sticking to low carb keto, it's a lot easier when you're including animal based foods. So for you, is it cultural reasons or health reasons? What is it that sways you to the vegetarian world?
Yeah, it's a lot more work when you're a vegetarian to try and figure this out. And when we're a family of four vegetarians with four different versions of liking what we eat, and all of us being vegetarian, is very interesting, the amount of creative things we have to think about. So it's mental work. Why do I do it? I used to eat meat till I was 15. I've grown up. I was born and raised in the US till I was 10, and then came to India, and then I moved back to America, and then I've moved back to India. So I've done like this hop a couple of times. So I'm very comfortable with both cultures. So I don't have a taste aversion to eating animal protein, but I decided to stop just for animal welfare reasons. There have been times when I've craved protein in both pregnancies. I felt like I need better quality protein. And so that craving, I think that was my body telling me I need more protein. But it's more for cultural animal reasons that I don't. And I do have my concerns about just how animals are treated. I think we can do better with that. Maybe if there was an ideal world where I had my own farm and I had my own ranch and my own animals and I could be humane to them, then I do consider animal protein to be a far superior source, which is why I source really good, expensive eggs, from free range, cruelty free. They say cruelty free, but have I gone and looked at the hens myself? No. So what do you do, right? It's really hard, honestly, to live responsibly in this world that we are in. Um, so it's more from that perspective that I avoid animal protein. But, you know, to be honest, there would be, if I had to choose, if I was with my back against the wall, there's no food available, I either eat a loaf of bread or I pick up some animal protein. I think I'd pick the animal protein because I do value my health. And I think it's like there's an ethical, thing you have to deal with yourself and you have to sleep well at night. But I don't think I would be okay stuffing a loaf of bread and not taking care of my health.
Okay, so coming back to the principles of the diet, prioritizing protein, bringing down the carbs, you've explained how you've done this as a vegetarian. It sounds like a ton of eggs. Somebody that is vegan,
Yeah, that's
I'm
hard.
assuming you must work with vegans. How, it's hard, but how do they go about doing this?
They do it. Yeah, I've worked with them. It's very tough. And they get full. They get really full from the amount of fiber that comes in. They feel bloated sometimes, and they really struggle. In fact, one of them actually had so much gut problems, like just gut imbalance, and she couldn't tolerate more protein. As much as I was like, you need more protein to heal your gut, but my gut won't handle it. And I'm like, oh gosh, but that was her belief system. So one thing is they're ending up using a lot of tofu, a lot of soy protein, and protein shakes. There's really nothing else. I mean, how many nuts and how many seeds will you eat? Vegetables, again, you eat them for the protein that comes in some high, like spinach, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, but they're so filling because of all the fiber. So they get bloated, they get full. So the protein shakes and the tofu are really all they have. It's hard.
One food category that is often tied to insulin resistance in our world is the seed oils.
Yes.
So, talk about how you see a connection there if you do, and then are they something you avoid?
Yeah, as I was narrating that incident in 2013 where this gentleman refused to go on insulin, I didn't know about seed oils at that time. And actually, back then, I was even telling people to skip egg yolks, right? So we've all had these journeys of awakening where we realize, oh, egg yolks are not a problem. Take as many egg yolks as you eat eggs. So those journeys have happened. What happened with that gentleman was that by reducing his carbs and not me looking into his oils, I didn't look into his oils or fats at all, because I was still influenced by the saturated fat hypothesis back then. I thought we should be low fat, and the low carb thing happened later. So m- my prescription to him was to reduce carbs, and I did not interfere with his cooking oils. He was able to turn around a very large part of his diabetes. Did he get completely into remission? Did the diabetes fully go away? No. What was that? Was that the oils? Was that he hadn't put on enough muscle? Because he was a classic tofu. He was a thin on the outside, fat on the inside. He had this belly fat. He was overall slim. So he had like sunken cheeks and like very skinny arms and legs, but a belly. And so, was this residual diabetes coming from sarcopenia and being under muscled? I don't know. I've started to switch out people's cooking fats for about, I don't know, maybe 5, 8 years now. I've been telling them to get out of the seed oils, the refined oils. And we made a switch in our home. I mean, Jesse, I lived in America. I remember going and picking up canola oil because it had the lowest saturated fat. I would go look for the lowest thing on the label. And I dutifully did that, thinking I'm being a responsible home, providing for my home in this responsible way. So I've done that. And now I don't. And now we recommend ghee, coconut oil, butter, full milk cream, like, keep the cream in the milk. Don't go for the skim version. Please enjoy the full fat milk. And I don't think avocado oil is affordable in India, nor is the macadamia oil. That's too fancy and too bizarre for the Indian culture. So if someone really needs to stay in the seed oil, because cooking in ghee is very expensive. Okay. And by me giving the suggestion to you is, here are the cooking fats I advise, but me not insisting on it, getting people's carbs down, I'm able to get them to quite a reasonable level of health. Now, for someone who's persistently sick, we'll have to go into the oils. Um, but these are the major cooking oils. And so if someone really has to stay in seed oils, then we'll look at peanut. It's like, maybe the least harmful one is peanut and maybe sesame. And that's about it.
Up until this point, we've focused heavily on proteins. getting good quality protein, bringing the carbs down. We're now touching on fats, and you've made it clear you're not fearing fats, but we haven't really talked about getting an abundance of fat through the diet.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, is it more focused on the other two macros and then the fat takes care of itself? Or do you like to make sure you're getting a certain amount of fat? Let's bring fat in.
Yeah, I like how you put that question. I think I let fat take care of itself. I'm not prescriptive when it comes to the fat. Um, People are mentally fearing fat anyway, so I'm just making it an okay macro for now because by swapping out the carbs and the proteins, we're making enough progress. When they start asking about fats, I'm like, take in fats to satiety. If you have increased your protein well, into the target range and you're still hungry, take fats for satiety, right? But I'm not tracking and asking them to reach a certain number or grams of fat. I think they're doing okay, and I've not had to chase that as a target.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
The majority of people walking around with metabolic ill health, they don't have any signs or symptoms. They feel fine. I was not aware of low carb in 2013 when I got pre-diabetes. I was eating a lot of carbs.